So December turned out to be a huge reading month. Welcome to Mad on Books, where I talk about fantasy mostly, science fiction sometimes, and comics occasionally. I was kind of expecting that, as usual, I might read 4 or 5, maybe at the outside 6 books in December, and I surprised myself. Partially because I was working from home almost the entire month, and secondly because, of course, I had a lot of time off. My last day at work was the 21st, I think. And right now it's still Christmas break. I don't go back to work until January 2nd. So that gave me a hell of a lot of time to read. I finished Midnight Tides, book number 5 in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. I read this, it's all a reread, obviously. You've probably heard me talk about the Malaz Everything Read more times than you would like. This is part of that. I read it for the second time. I remember when I first read this, I was kind of annoyed because in the first book, you're on one continent with a bunch of people. In the second book, you're on another continent with another bunch of people. Third book goes back to the first continent. Fourth book goes back to the second continent. And this one goes to a totally new continent. And none of the characters, basically, mostly, none of the characters in the first 4 books are in this one. But knowing that on a reread and remembering how much I ended up liking this, I loved it on a reread. So Midnight Tides. Then I've mentioned it before, the A Song of Ice and Fire read-along that is coming up, officially starting in January, so in just a couple of days. To get hyped up for that, which is a reread for me, I've read A Song of Ice and Fire, all of it before. I got Fire and Blood, which is a history that takes place 100-something years before A Song of Ice and Fire, before the first book, A Game of Thrones, and is the history of the Targaryens. If you've seen the TV show, House of the Dragon, it's based on a small part of this. But this was actually really cool. I was surprised. It's written as a history, which normally I would kind of expect wouldn't really grip me. But it's written in such an interesting way that I actually did end up getting into it and racing through it. It's not nearly as big as it looks. It's very, very generously typeset. It's the physical book itself has 700 something pages. Yeah, just over 700 pages. If this was typeset like a normal mass market paperback, it would probably be 450 pages. So it's just chunky visually. It's not that bad. And I really enjoyed it. Next was a novella, because until the end of the year, I'm doing the Malazan something else. This was a novella this is a collection of 3. First collected tales of Beauculain and Corbel Broach. The novella I read was called The Healthy Dead, and it was hilarious. You can really tell that Erikson is just giving himself space to have some fun and stretch his legs. Wait a sec. The foreword, it's not really a foreword, it's just a little quote that's printed in the front before this story, says, "Warning to lifestyle fascists everywhere. Don't read this or you'll go blind." It's basically a critique or a satire of the health craze and the wellness craze and how much people are willing to make themselves crazy just for a slight gain in health, thereby reducing probably their enjoyment of life. And it's translated into a Malazan story in this, which was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Then, continuing the hype for Westeros and the upcoming Game of Thrones read in January, I read A Knight of Seven Kingdoms, also by George R.R. Martin. It's a story that sort of takes place between Fire and Blood and Game of Thrones, about a hedge knight, so a knight that doesn't really belong to a famous family. He just rents himself out to different places as a way of getting some income. And his squire So Dunk, Sir Duncan the Tall. Dunk is the knight, and Egg is his squire, and Egg is more than he seems to be. And this is a collection of 3 novellas or short stories, not really short stories, more novellas, with Dunk and Egg. And it's about as wholesome and cozy as any kind of Westeros story ever gets. So that was also a lot of fun. Then, of course, it was back to Malazan, but this time, for the first time, not a Malazan Book of the Fallen book. So I am reading all of the Malazan books in concurrent publication order, and there are 2 authors, Steven Erikson and Ian C. Esselmont. And this was the first Esselmont book, Night of Knives, which jumps back before the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and gives you some background on how Laseen, for example, got to be the Empress, and how the Emperor and Dancer became what they end up being. Kind of reads like a short story. I think the whole action in the book takes place in 16 hours or something. It's like at most a couple of days. And it's all happening in one place, and it's got quite a bit smaller cast of characters than you might be used to from other Malazan books. Ian C. Esselmont's writing is also excellent. It's a bit different than Steven Erikson's, but this was a lot of fun, and it's really, really interesting because Esselmont's books, Malazan books, fill in a lot of the lore that you might be curious about that wasn't fully explained, that happened before or in between books in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. So I'm really looking forward to reading more of these. This is the first in the novels of the Malazan Empire, so it's sort of a separate series, but they all weave in and out of the Malazan Book of the Fallen. So that was also really, really good. Then I read the only book that I reviewed this month, which is Lord of Light by Roger Zelazny. If you've seen my review, I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. It was something completely different. It is so different from Malazan that it was an excellent break from Malazan, but also just super, super, super enjoyable. I rated this extremely highly. I don't really do ratings, but I recommend it very highly to anyone who's interested in fantasy or science fiction or both, because it is kind of both. And it has a lot of interesting philosophical things in it, a lot of interesting thoughts about religion, and also just some great characters. So I really, really enjoyed this. Then I had a little quandary, because starting next month, January, I'm going to be doing 1 Malazan a month, not Malazan something else, but just 1 Malazan a month, 1 Song of Ice and Fire a month, and 1 Realm of the Elderlings a month, plus whatever else I get to. So I decided already a week or 2 ago to stop with the Malazan in between everything and just read what I wanted until the end of the month. So I read The Severing Sun by Vaughan Roycroft. Vaughan was nice enough to send me a copy, and then he was nice enough to send me another copy because the first one had a printing error. And Vaughan has been a very, very generous supporter of the channel and just an all-around nice guy. So I was really interested in reading this. Herr Professor Dr. Philip Chase also said that it was great. He did a very cool review of it and rated it very highly. So I wanted to read it, and I did, and I'm glad I did. It was really enjoyable, and I will be doing a review for this coming up in the next week or 2. And speaking of quandaries, last but not least, I kind of screwed up. Earlier, 4 or 5 videos ago, I invited all of you to take part in a read-along for The Realm of the Elderlings. But I'm very impatient and I have low impulse control. So I read Assassin's Apprentice in 2 or 3 days. It's not very big compared to some of the later books. I couldn't hold myself back. I just missed Fitz and The Fool and The Six Duchies so much because this is reread for me that I dove back into it. What I'm thinking of doing, because I really feel bad inviting you to a read along and then starting without you, I will skim read this again next month in January. I'm thinking every month we start with a new book on the first of the month. And there's a channel specifically for Assassin's Apprentice on the Grimoire Discord, link down below. Join the Discord. It will be a lot of fun discussing this with people because there's so much awesome stuff going on in these books. I really look forward to it. I just couldn't wait. But I will keep up with the discussion, and I will hold myself back and read Royal Assassin, the second book, starting in February. Also, one last thing. I got back into Vinland Saga. I think I mentioned it a while ago. I had a big break. I read the first 4 books pretty quickly, these hardback bound volumes. I read the first 4 pretty quickly and then just didn't for a while. But I realized I kind of missed them. So I got 5 and 6. I'm actually having a hard time finding 7 in English in Germany. But I finished 5. I've basically got 5 and 6 next to my bed. And I just read however many pages I want before I go to sleep. And it's manga, so it goes really quick. So I read 5. I'm enjoying it, but again, it feels a little bit like build-up. There was a big change between 4 and 5. And now what's going on in 5 is building up to what's coming or what's starting already in 6, and I assume 7. So we'll see how it goes. If I can get 7, I will just keep reading them. If there's one that I just totally can't get, that's kind of a bit of a blockage, which is annoying, but we'll see. And what did I listen to this month? Nothing. I was, like I said, working from home most of the month. Usually what I do with audiobooks is I've started using them on my commute as a way to not be bored for 1.5 hours every day. And if I'm working at home, I'm not commuting. And for me, an audiobook isn't really something I want to do if I have time to sit around, because then I want to read a book, not listen to a book. So yeah, this month, no audiobooks at all. I've got a number of them lined up and bookmarked and whatever. And I assume I'll be getting back to them in January because I'll be going back to work. Collaborations, not that many, but the 2 that there were awesome. I did a Friends on Books with Theo, Alex, and Andrew. All of their channels will be linked below. And we basically talked over each other and laughed our asses off for 2 hours, which was great. I also, just recently, a couple days ago, Tori and I were texting. We sort of had time off, Christmas time and all of that. So we did a sort of spontaneous, cozy chat sprint live stream. The 2 of us just chatting, and a lot of people in the chat giving us questions and comments and things, and then 2 reading sprints where we read for half an hour each time. And that was great. That was really, really nice. It was a nice change of pace. I've been sitting at home reading a lot by myself lately, so it was really fun to get together with everybody and have a chat with Tori and read. So what's going on with the channel? Well, this was, I'll just get my phone so I can see the statistics. It was a big month in a way because I hit 500 subscribers. That's really cool. I always wonder, it always seems funny to me, I guess because we've got 10 fingers, we think that 10s and multiples of 10s are really important numbers or very noticeable numbers somehow. 497 could also be something that we would be excited about, but we're not. We're excited about things like 500, and I hit 500. And as I look on my phone right now, I am at 592. So maybe, if I'm lucky, in the next couple of days, probably not, I might hit 600, but I'll definitely hit 600 in January, which is cool. I don't really have a strong drive to do this for the numbers. I'm not aiming to make this a career or anything. It's just nice to know that people are enjoying it, and that is a very concrete kind of measurable feedback that things are going well and that people are enjoying what I'm doing, which is cool. I did a number of videos this month because I had more time than I usually do. And it's interesting looking at lists of the statistics, because what is constantly insanely good is the Tolkien Editions video that I did a while ago. It's got almost 3,000 views, which for me is a hell of a lot. The next highest is 1.4 thousand, and the next highest after that is 640. So that really blew everything away. The things from this month that were really big were, not surprisingly, my TBR, my plans for next year, my unboxing, and my wrap up from last month. And the review for Lord of Light actually did better than I would have expected. Reviews normally don't do that well. For me, they're more like 100 to 200, and this one was like 250 views, which is not very many, but for me, it's kind of above average for a review. So that was kind of cool. So how was your December? I hope you had a lovely holiday season, whatever kind of holiday you celebrate. I'm interested, maybe as a question, tell me down in the comments, is there any particular kind of video that you particularly like that maybe I haven't done or that I have done and I should do more? I'm really interested in guiding the channel in directions that you're also enjoying, not only that I want to do. So tell me down in the comments if there's something particular that you would like me to do. Other than that, I hope you're well, keep reading awesome books, and I will see you next time.